Evening, ladies as well as gentlemen. I'm Papa Boris, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to play Tharsis, a game that was given to me over Christmas by my extremely wonderful and generous friend Jeff. This is a very complex board game. The rules are quite challenging, so I'm going to do my best to explain everything as thoroughly as I can. If you've never heard of Tharsis, this is kind of like faster than light, turn-based with dice. You could also call it a digital co-op board game, I suppose, although of course it's a single-player game. You control everybody yourself. The idea is that you control a crew of 4 astronauts on a mission to Mars. The mission is very perilous, bad shit happens all the time, and you have to try to survive the bad shit and finish the mission. One thing I like about this game is it is, first of all, very challenging. I am pretty good at these types of games, but even on normal difficulty, not hard, just normal, it still took me a couple of tries before I was able to win the game. And on top of that, the games are short. It's kind of got like a roguelike element to it in that, you start and then if you die, then you just have to start over. But the problem a lot of roguelikes have, for me anyway, is that it gets to the point where every run is like 3 hours or 4 hours or something. So like by the time you fail, you've invested a ton of time in it and the game starts to wear on you after a while. Whereas here, a game can take like 30 minutes. So it's got the really high challenge aspect that we all love about roguelikes and, difficult solo slash co-op slash survival type of games. But you don't have to sink a bajillion hours into playing every single run. Anyway, let's go ahead and start the game. At the beginning of the game, you choose your crew of 4 members. You can unlock up to 5 other members by playing the game more and doing certain things. I do like that they're very clear, the designers, of what you have to do in order to, acquire these people. Although I will say, this is not really a review video, but an explanations video, but still, I will say some of these things are pretty long. Like, I might imagine that by the time I actually research 300 times or do 2,800 repairs that I might be done with the game. I don't know, but we'll see. I'm going to go ahead and do the default 4. You do unlock the pilot after you beat the game for the first time, so I'm not going to use him. I'm going to do it with the original 4 characters, which is what you would have if you were to start playing the game. There's an easy mode, a normal mode, and a hard mode. I have not tried it on hard yet. We're going to go ahead and do normal. Easy mode was added a few months ago, so it used to not be there, but I'd recommend playing it on normal. The game is not like so difficult that you need to give yourself a break unless you're just going to be playing randomly, which hopefully you won't be because you're watching this comprehensive explanation of the rules. Now, one thing I do wish is that the game would start. There we go. This story is actually kind of interesting, but it plays every single time you play the game, and I kind of wish there was a way to turn that off. I didn't see it in the menu, so we're gonna go ahead and skip this stuff. But do check out the story; it's pretty interesting. Okay, so let's begin the rules explanation. This is your ship. It's the Iktomi, and you have 4 crew members to start things off. Now, every round in this game is like a week of the trip to Mars, and you can see there's 10 weeks till we get to Mars. So you're basically trying to survive for 10 rounds. What you do in each round is you assign each of these crew members to an area of the ship. There are, I'll show you here, if you click on this ship info button in the bottom left-hand corner, there are 7 different places in the ship where the crew member can go. And you can choose which order you assign the crew members in, and that ends up being a very important part of the strategy. So, for example, I could take Allison Silva and assign her, to whatever that place, the laboratory. Or I could take, the Dr. Kayla Jones and then assign her to the greenhouse. So, once you deploy somebody to a location, what's going to happen, and I'll briefly explain this before I actually show how it works, is that you will roll some dice, and then you're going to spend the dice. Now, the number of dice that you roll is determined by the number of dice that the character has. Each character has between 1 and 5 dice. I don't believe that you can actually go below 1, so you'll always have a minimum of 1. And each time you deploy a character, the number of dice decreases by 1. So if I were to send Allison Silva and, deploy her to the, I never remember these names, the life support area of the ship, then she would roll 3 dice and have 3 dice to spend, but this pip here would disappear and she'd go down to 2 dice. So basically the following round she would only have 2 dice to work with. Now, as you can imagine, having more dice is very good. You can use food in between rounds to replenish dice. Each time you feed a person 1 food, they regain 3 of their dice, although of course food can be a bit tough to come by. That is a way that you can get your dice replenished. Now, every round there will be, I've usually seen 2 or 3 events that afflict your ship. And one of the problems that a lot of people have is when they play this game is they treat it just like a fix the events thing. And certainly fixing the events is important. but it's not like something that you absolutely have to do. So for example, there's a wire short over here in the maintenance area of the ship, and you can see it tells you what will happen if you do not fix the event. Like if I don't fix this wire short, then it's going to deal 1 damage to my hull. Now over here we see we start the game with 3 hull components, and if you ever run out of hull, you die and the game is over. So, you know, over time this is going to add up to a lot of damage, but of course, if you want to avoid it because you have more pressing things to do, you certainly can. This mission over, or this event over here, the meteoroid strike, will actually deal 2 damage to the hull if I do not fix it this round. In addition to the effects, each event tells you how many repair points that you need in order to fix it. So the meteoroid strike is harder to fix than the wire short. It takes 23 as opposed to 10. And by the way, these events are randomly generated, so you're not going to always start the game like this. And it also has some other effects. Now there's 3 different types of dice effects. There's stasis, void, and injury. And right now we only have the blue ones, so hopefully next round we'll see some of the other ones so I can explain them. So stasis means that whenever you roll a die, if you roll it to that value, you cannot re-roll it. Each character is allowed 1 re-roll, and Alison Silva, our specialist here, her special ability is that she actually gets a bonus re-roll, so she can re-roll the dice twice. But if you roll a 2 or a 3, or in this case a 1 or a 3 on this event, then that die cannot be re-rolled, and it remains fixed when you re-roll your other dice. Now, having a high numbers is a good thing. That's why the stasis events are typically affecting 1s, 2s, or 3s. Each die that you apply to the event basically repairs the event by the amount shown on the die. So applying a 6 to this meteoroid strike event would reduce the repair value down from 23 to 17, so it'd be closer to being fixed. Whereas applying a 1 to it would only take it down from a 23 to a 22. The event is repaired when you get down to 0. So one other thing I will mention before we actually take a look at how these events play out is that if you move a character through a room that has an event in it, or out of a room that has an event in it, that character takes a damage. So if I were to try to deploy Kayla to this area here, the life support area, she would take a damage because right now she's in a room that has an event in it, and moving out of it would deal a damage to her. If I take Alison Silva and I were to deploy her over to the end of the ship where flight control is, she would take a damage because that would require passing through this area here, the greenhouse, where there is an event taking place. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Health is shown on the right side of the character, so a couple of my characters are pretty damn damaged, only having 2 health points left. Our mechanic here starts with 3, and then the doctor's pretty hardy, she's got 5. This is pretty random, so you can have the character start in different places and with different health values, so you can't just like memorize an opening and always play everything the same way every time. Now, what I'm going to do here is take the specialist and move her into this meteoroid strike area and try to, you know, fix this thing up. So now she's here, and now let's talk about how the die rolling and spending takes place, because repairing the event is just one of the things that you can do. There's actually 5 different ways to spend your dice, and we'll talk about that. So first I'm going to go ahead and click the roll button. She's going to roll 3 dice, and notice that her pips went from 3 to 2 because she took an action. Another thing to notice is I rolled a 2, and this die is not frozen. I could actually re-roll it. The reason is that we start the game with 1 assist, and we generate 1 assist every round. An assist essentially blocks one of these hazards. That's what these stasis things are called. So because I rolled a 2, and that's a hazard, normally the die would have been frozen, but because of the assist, it's not. So let's talk about the different ways that you can spend dice. Most characters, actually every character besides the specialist, has a special class ability that you can apply dice to. We'll talk about the other characters' class abilities when we take a turn with them. For Allison here, that's not going to be the case. You can apply dice to the dice hold. So what that does is it holds the die and prevents it from being re-rolled if you choose to re-roll your other dice. This is good to do if you're not quite sure where you want to spend the die. You can also spend dice in the modules. So every module of the ship, every different room has a different thing that you can spend dice towards. The greenhouse is pretty cool because it actually lets you generate food. Now the way that the greenhouse works is that you have to put any die that you want in the first slot. And then every die that you put in after that needs to be the same as the first die. So if I were to put a 2 here, which I'm not going to do because this game has a touch it move it sort of system where once you apply a die, it is fixed and you can't undo it. If I were to put a 2 in here, then all other dice that I put in here would have to be 2s. The pips that are below the boxes indicate when you actually gain the benefit of that module. So in the case of harvesting food, the first die does nothing. The second die would give me 1 food, and the third die would give me another food. Now, the dice stick around. So if Allison were to put a 2 here, that 2 would actually stay there. It would not go away at the end of her turn. So if another character came into this room and also rolled dice here, they could also apply things to this module. So for example, I could have, say, the mechanic come in here, and if Allison had put a 2 here and the mechanic put a 2 in here himself, we'd actually get a food, which would be nice because, you know, we're low on dice. Another place where you can apply dice is the research projects. So the research projects zone has 6 slots, each for one of the different values that you can roll on a die. And each die that is placed here basically counts as a research point. You can use research points to complete one of 3 different research projects, and there's a big pool of these. These are randomly generated at the beginning of the game. Each time you spend one, another random one pops in its place, and you can also spend a research point at any time in order to get rid of the 3 that are there and shuffle in 3 new ones. When you spend research points, the dice are spent from left to right. So if I were to decide, and again, I'm not going to do this because it's touch it, move it. If I were to decide to put this 2 here and this 4 here, and then I used duct tape to repair one module by 3 points. Basically, if I used it here, it would take it from a 23 down to a 20. Then the 2 would get spent and the 4 would stay. So right here, and by the way, in this video, I'm not necessarily making optimal moves. These are just some moves that you could make. I'm going to go ahead and apply this 5 and this 4 to the event to repair it a little bit, because I don't really want my hull taking 2 damage every round. Bye-bye, bye-bye. So now it's getting a little bit more manageable. But because getting dice is good, what I'll do is I will roll this 2, and then just kind of see what happens. Maybe I'll get a big number and apply it to the repair, or if it stays crappy, then I'll go ahead and stick it in the harvest food zone. Okay, I rolled another 2, and because of stasis and me not having any more assists, this 2 is frozen. So now I either have to apply it to a research project or to harvesting food, and I'm going to go ahead and apply it to harvest food. Now all my dice have been spent, and I finish my deployment. Next, what I'm going to do is have the mechanic move over here and also try to fix it. Some people say that in your first round you shouldn't worry about fixing the events. You should just like go to life support and use the regain dice ability of this module, and that's maybe a decent strategy, but I do think that getting rid of an event that deals 2 hull damage every turn is a pretty good thing to do. Now the mechanic, unfortunately, is only rolling 2 dice here, so there's a bit of a limit to what he can accomplish, but still, we'll roll them bones and see what happens. Alright, we rolled stasis 2 times, which definitely sucks, so these guys are not getting re-rolled. Notice that the mechanic has a class ability. If you have a die of value 5 or higher, you can put it in here, and that would add 1 point to the hull. And that doesn't matter what module he is in. There's a module in this ship that's dedicated to repairing the hull, but the mechanic, wherever he is, he can always repair the hull by 1 if he decides to invest a die of value 5 or higher. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to apply the 2 to the greenhouse so that we can harvest a food here. And this 3, I can either repair this thing by 3, or I can, put a research project in here and maybe do something with it later. We'll go ahead and apply the 3 there. See if maybe I can get a lucky roll with the captain and finish off those repairs. So we're going to send the captain over here. Now the captain has a pretty cool ability. If you put a die of value 5 or higher into his class ability, it gives a bonus die to every crew in the module, including the captain herself. So hopefully we can get a 5 or a 6. And wow, that was a very lucky roll here. So now what I could do is I could actually apply the 5 here to the captain's ability, and then the captain and the mechanic and the specialist, who are all in this area, would regain a die. Now, of course, if I did that, I would be 1 point shy of fixing this event. So what I could do is I could throw the 6 in here and then see if I can get lucky rolling a 5 or a 6 with the 4. Or I could play it safe. I could put the 6 and the 5 in here, repair the event right now, and then take a roll. In that case, what I would be doing is gambling to see if I could maybe get a 5 or a 6 to put in the class ability. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and fix the event now. And I'm going to reroll this 4. Notice that when the event is gone, the stasis has gone away. Not that it matters, because the captain doesn't have any more rerolls. So if I get a 5 or a 6, I can go ahead and give everybody in this room a bonus die. If I get a 2, I can harvest another food. And if I get a 1 or a 3, then, life sucks. All right, 6 is great. So we're going to go here. Notice the captain has 2, the specialist has 2, and the mechanic has 1. Once I put this die here, they're each going to go up by 1. So I essentially gained 3 dice through the captain's ability because of the way that I positioned my team members and put everybody into this room. Now the dice are all spent, we're going to finish deployment. At this point, it's the doctor's turn. Now the doctor only has 1 die, so there's no way she's going to fix this event. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move the doctor over into life support, even though this takes a damage. The doctor is the only one who's got health to spare at the moment. And here I'm going to go ahead and roll her single bone. Doesn't matter what it is. In the life support module, you can put in any die into it and gain 2 dice. If you put another die that's the same value, you can get an additional 2 dice. Unfortunately, the doctor doesn't have any more dice. Her special ability is if you use a die of 5 or higher, everybody including her in the same room, gets a bonus health. And then that's all the doctor can do, so we're going to finish deployment. Now there's some other modules I haven't explained, but you'll see what they are when we get there. Notice there was some impending damage since I didn't fix an event. That event dealt 1 damage to the hull. Now in between missions, a couple things happen. There's a side project, and these are chosen from a random pool. It's 2 different things, and you choose one. You have to choose one. You can't do nothing. So this one, prevent stasis and -1 dice for all crew. So everybody loses a die, but in the next round, stasis events don't work. Of course, everybody losing a die is pretty damn terrible. Another option is everybody takes the damage, but gets a die. And again, these are random, so you're not going to get the same things every single time. That seems pretty fantastic to me for everybody to gain a die, so I'm going to go ahead and choose this event. Then we assign food. Each food that you feed to a person regains 3 dice. And you have to make some difficult decisions here. So for example, I could be a little bit inefficient and give a food to the mechanic. I'm wasting a die, but that means that in the next round, the mechanic's rolling 5 dice instead of 3. So maybe, do I want to lose ultimate value in exchange for having the mechanic be more effective in the subsequent round? In this case, let's just go ahead and not spend any of my food. We're going to finish. Then the next round comes in. 2 new events are added, and notice we're seeing some different effects here. Some events deal damage to the hull, indicated by the red bar, as we've seen. Other events can cause everybody to lose a die, which is not good. Other events can cause everybody to lose a health, which is also not good. Unfortunately, both of these events have stasis, which we've already explained. It's the blue die, meaning if you roll that die while rolling dice in that module, the die is frozen. So I'll just go ahead and explain via words what the other events are. You can get purple dice, so that those are void. If you roll that die, the die just disappears. Notice it does not affect the character's number of pips, but it just means that the number of dice in that pool for that roll is diminished by 1 permanently. And then there's the dreaded injuries. Those are the orange dice. That means that if you roll that die, your character takes a damage, which is normally not that big of a deal, but it's kind of a big deal here because you can see my people are all pretty damn weak at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and just take one more round here to illustrate how the game might work. I noticed that everybody's really, really hurt, so I'm going to have the doctor move into this area while everybody is in there. And I'm going to have her take a roll here. I'm not that concerned about repairing this, although of course I will if I happen to get some high numbers. What I'm really hoping to do is get at least 1 die that's a 5 or a higher, and use this class ability of the doctors. The stasis affected the 3. The 3 is frozen, but it did not affect the 1 because you generate 1 assist every round, and an assist is something that automatically blocks the effect of one of these hazards. So when there's multiple hazards, you actually have to think about, okay, whose turn do I want to take first, so that the assist applies to the hazards that I really care about. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and apply a 5 to give everybody in this module 1 extra hit point. There is another room in the ship where you can spend dice to heal. Then, I guess I do want to repair this event. I don't particularly want it to deal a hull damage if I can avoid that. And we'll go ahead and re-roll this 1, see if I can get something a little bit higher to help. Now I got another 3, and that's of course going to get frozen by stasis. So I have some choices here. I can either apply the 3 to a research project, I can apply both of these 3s and harvest another food, or I can just apply to the repair. You can see that there's a lot of choices to make in this game. If you lose this game all the time, it's definitely because you're making bad choices. Although people think this is a game of luck because you're rolling dice. And sure, sometimes you can get totally screwed by bad rolls or win the game despite sucking because of good rolls. But mostly the outcome of the game is going to come down to your skill because there are so many dang choices to make. I'm going to go ahead and heal this event up by 6. And now I'm going to have the captain go because everybody's in this room. So if the captain goes right now and gets a 5 or a 6, then the captain can give a die to everybody, and that's really worth it. You'll notice that in a lot of these cases, your decisions don't just come down to like go to a place, fix an event, but you need to think about using your crew's special class abilities in the best way possible. You need to think about using the module abilities in the best way possible, and you know, that requires positioning and making sure you take people's turns in the right orders, and so on. So we're going to go ahead and apply this right now. So everybody gets an extra die. Notice Allison here hasn't even taken a turn yet, but because she was in the right room, she's gained a die and she's gained a health, so that's really nice. And we can think, I've got 8 points of thing here, so I can't repair this event. But what I could do is I could put a couple of 2s into this greenhouse to get an extra food and just stick the 4 in here, because the 4 is above an average. And then that would be down to a 5, so maybe I could have the mechanic take the turn in here, finish off this event, and we could also get a food. Another option, though, and this is what I'm going to take, is I'm actually going to re-roll these 2s. I'm going to hope I can get at least a roll of 5 or higher, which is, I'm more than likely to do that. In fact, I got extremely lucky and got a 5 and a 6. So now we're going to go ahead and finish that event. I'm going to assign this 6 to research, because I don't think it's that likely I'm going to want anybody else to take more actions here. We're doing really good on dice, and like everybody's almost at full, and we've got 3 food. So it's going to be a while before I really need to eat that food, so we're just going to go ahead and apply that to research and finish the captain's deployment. Now we have the specialist and the mechanic who need to go, and there's 2 different events that we can try to deal with. One of them deals with damage to the hull, and that event is in the maintenance room where you can spend dice on repair. So notice this equal sign means that every die assigned has to be the same, and these pips show that the first die you apply doesn't do anything. The second and the third dice repair 1 point of the hull. So it's pretty difficult to repair the hull, just like it's pretty difficult to harvest food. Notice it was much easier, for example, to regain dice in this life support pod where every single die applied gained some dice. There are also rooms that function kind of like the class abilities, in that these rooms just require a single die of 5 or higher, and they provide a benefit. So in this case, and again, I'm just teaching the rules here, so I'm not 100% sure that I'm making the right call. I don't really want to lose dice. This just seems like the worst thing ever. This is a pretty tough room because all 1s and 2s rolled get frozen, but I'm willing to invest the time to fix this, even if it means taking an extra hull damage, because I'd much rather have everybody get an extra die and have the hull be at the razor's edge than try to keep the hull up but have everybody be way less effective. And I'm going to have the specialist go first. The idea here is if I get lucky with the specialist and can actually fix this event, then the mechanic can actually go over here and try to attack this wire short. The nice thing about that is if I had the mechanic go first, I might be put in a position where, because first of all, he has 4 dice, not the specialist's 5, so he's less likely to succeed at this event. But on top of that, if the mechanic went first, I might be put into an awkward position where it's like, okay, do I need to finish repairing this event? Or do I apply a 5 or a 6 to the mechanic's ability and fix a section of the hull? So let's go ahead and deploy the specialist first. And hope we don't roll any 1s and 2s on her 5 dice. Of course, it's possible that I do, and that would just suck. In fact, 2 of my dice got frozen. So what I'm going to do here is throw in the 4 and then think. Right now, my total, 3, 6, is 9. So I'm going to do a roll. This is risky, of course, because if I do roll more 1s and 2s, then they will get frozen. But if I get 5s and 6s, I can improve. Oh, Jesus. I can improve over the 4. All right, so right now I have a total of 5. So this die would have to come up a 6 in order to it would have to come up a 5 or a 6. Or sorry, it would have to come up a 6 in order for me to finish repairing this event. And since at this point it seems pretty clear that I'm not going to be able to finish repairing the event, I probably don't want to re-roll this. Because if I get another 1 or a 2, it's just bad. Alright, whatever, I'll take it. If I get a 4, it's still better, so 50-50 odds. Alright, I kept it as a 3. Now, one thing that we can do is we can actually put one of these dice in here and use the duct tape, because it only takes 1 research point, and 3 repair 1 module. So that's a way that I can actually get more repair than the die is worth. In that case, I could do 3, 5, 7, plus 3 is 10. Alternatively, I could use the die that's already here to take this down to an 8, and then I can spend all 4 dice to fix this event. So it's kind of a choice here. I can leave this event here and just have the mechanic go here and also take a stab at it. Or I can just kind of spend everything I have to repair this event, and then the mechanic might have a shot at fixing the other event, which would give me more flexibility in future rolls. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We're going to just spend everything to fix this, even though it's a little bit inefficient, and now I no longer have any research. And then her turn is over. The mechanic now is free to go tackle this wire short with 4 dice. He's got a decent shot at being able to fix this thing. Notice, by the way, you do need to look at the pips pretty carefully here, because like here, the first one does nothing, but the second one actually fixes 2 sections of hull. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hold on to this 5, and I'm going to re-roll the 2. I'll decide after that 2 is finished rolling what I'm going to do with my 5. Oh, it turned into a 1. That's fantastic. All right, so I can either go 5, 3, and 10 and just fix this event, or I can get fancy. I can spend a couple of 1s to repair 2 sections of the hull. This event only damages 1 section of the hull, so I actually gain hull that way. And then I can still put in, let's say, like a 5 over here and get another section of the hull and just throw this 3 into the repair event so that it becomes a 7. That would be pretty easy then to fix next time, and I gain hull strength overall. The contrary position of this would be that by applying all these dice and fixing the event right now, I give myself more flexibility in future rounds with what I do. Because if I keep this event here, then essentially I'm committing 1 crew member to fixing this event. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just decide to use these 1s to get 2 sections of hull, and I will use this 5 to fix another section of hull using the mechanic's ability. So I don't mind the mechanic spending his next turn here. I'm pretty confident that with the other 3 crew members, especially with everybody having a pretty good chunk of dice right now, that we'll be able to take on whatever comes our way. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you have an understanding of how this game works. If you enjoy it, please like and or subscribe. And again, just to be very clear, you know, we pick another side project, we choose whether to feed everybody, and you're trying to survive the full 10 rounds to make it to Mars. I will be back. I'll actually finish up this game in my next Tharsis video, and then in the video after that, I'm going to go ahead and play another game of Tharsis, beginning from scratch, and trying to take it all the way through to a successful mission. Take care, everybody. I'll see you again real soon.